at your local pharmacy waiting to get your prescription filled. There's a young girl in front of you who appears to be around the age of 12 to 13. You notice that she's getting a prescription filled for birth control, and you might stop and think to yourself, where are her parents and why would they allow such a young child to be on birth control? The fact of the matter is that according to the law these days, the parents don't have to know, and in most cases don't know, that their child is on birth control. Providing birth control to minors without parental consent has become somewhat of a hot topic these days. Studies have been conducted to track teen pregnancy rates as well as STD rates among teens, and the long-term effects of birth control use. Many parents, including myself, feel that this is a topic that needs to be discussed. Teen pregnancy has been a concern for our society for quite some time. So should the mental health and physical health of our teens. According to the CDC, teen pregnancy rates have dropped from 31.3 teen pregnancies per 1,000 women in 2011 to 29.4 per 1,000 women in 2013. Many believe this is due to the more readily available birth control. However, another study conducted shows that teen STD diagnoses are also on the rise. My object today is to persuade you to speak out against the laws making it legal for minors to obtain birth control without the consent of their parents. What are the risks of birth control? There's various physical and emotional risks involved with sexual activity and birth control in minors. According to the National Cancer Institute, the risk for cervical cancer triples for women who use oral contraceptives for 5 to 9 years, and quadruples for women using it for more than 10 years. There's also some studies that have shown that there's an increased risk for liver tumors for women on birth control for more than 5 years. What about emotionally and mentally? Sociologist Ann Myers suggests that 15% of minors who become sexually active at a young age, 15 for girls, 14 for boys, are at an increased risk of developing depression. This number increases with those that are participating in casual sexual relationships. Here we see the study conducted by the National Longitudinal Survey of Adolescent Health. It shows that 25.3% of sexually active teenage girls report feeling depressed all of or most of the time, compared to only 7% among non-sexually active girls. On boys, the numbers are slightly different. It's 8.3 of sexually active teenage boys compared to 3.4. What about STDs? Teens currently account for 50% of new cases of sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV, each year. An area of the UK that recently began allowing the morning after pill to be provided free of charge at local pharmacies over the counter showed a 5% increase in sexually transmitted diseases in a very short period of time. In 2003, 6% of sexually active high school students reported using both oral contraceptives and condoms, compared to 14% that reported using only oral contraceptives. This leaves a large number of our youth taking the pill to prevent pregnancy, but not protecting themselves against sexually transmitted diseases. With these facts are concerning enough, there is another aspect to take into account, and that could be the legality of it. Legal age for consent means that this is the age that the courts have determined that a minor is mentally and emotionally mature enough to make the decision to have sex. Persons that engage in sexual activity with a minor below the age of consent are at risk for being charged with statutory rape. And sex with a child under a certain age, typically 13, can also result in aggravated sexual battery charges. In Kentucky and 30 other states, the legal age for consent is 16, which means that they cannot have sex until the age of 16. However, they can be put on birth control at whatever age they decide they want to. If a minor is deemed incompetent to make the decision to engage in sexual activity because they are not mentally or emotionally mature enough, then how can they be deemed competent to make the decision to put pregnancy-preventing chemicals into their body? So what can parents do? We need to get involved. Education is our best defense. It begins at home. We need to explain our beliefs, but also be open to listening and answering questions from our children. We need to get involved in community outreach programs for parents and youth, and also get our children involved in these programs. Studies have shown that teen pregnancy rate is lower when education begins at home. We also need to appeal to lawmakers over the absurdity of this law. A study conducted by the University of Nottingham found that teen pregnancy rates actually declined in Texas when a law was passed that required children to get parental consent to obtain birth control. While teenagers often yell about their rights and privacy, what about parents' rights? What about our right to know what's going on with our children? With big-name organizations like Planned Parenthood fighting to exclude parents from being involved in anything that has to do with the sexual health of our children, including abortions, parents are fighting an uphill battle. The best weapon we have is education. This does not mean that we have to condone or approve of our child engaging in sexual activity, but we should create an atmosphere where our child feels comfortable talking to us. With all the misinformation that's out there from TV and peers, it's important that they have a reliable source to go to. Giving contraceptives to minors can have some pretty serious consequences. The use of prescription contraceptives can cause long-term health problems. Sexual activity at a young age can lead to depression and self-image issues. And sex among teenagers can lead to legal ramifications for one, if not both parties. A person under the age of 18 cannot walk into their doctor's office and receive an antibiotic for an ear infection. They cannot ask for a throat test to determine whether or not they have strep. They cannot even get an influenza vaccine without the consent of their parent. If they are not deemed competent to determine basic medical needs, how can they make decisions that can lead to the creation of another human being?